Outdated liability. That's what he called me. I was sitting there, updating a regulatory compliance spreadsheet when the conference call lit up my screen. And there he was. Brad Morrison, maybe 28 years old, tops. The kind of guy who probably uses the word hustle as a personality trait and thinks pivot tables are some kind of black magic. The VP introduced him as our new operations optimizer, which is just corporate speak for executioner with a LinkedIn profile. Dude looked like he walked straight out of a men's grooming ad, spray tan, teeth whiter than his moral compass, hair styled like he Googled successful tech bro, and stopped scrolling after the first result. "Hey team," he said, flashing that smile you see on guys who still quote Wolf of Wall Street unironically. "I'm here to revolutionize our workflow and cut out the dead weight." His eyes scanned through the video feed like he was pricing furniture at an estate sale, and then they landed on me. I didn't even blink. Just quietly hit save on the folder containing every single certification document, federal compliance timestamp, and licensing chain with my name stamped all over it. Renamed it Grandmother's Cookie Recipes, backed it straight up to my personal cloud. Jessica Martinez doesn't go down like some amateur. Alright, real quick before we dive deeper, if you're vibing with this story and haven't hit that subscribe button yet, do a girl a solid. I'm trying to hit 15K so I can finally upgrade from this busted office chair that sounds like a dying seagull every time I move. Seriously, like 97% of you are listening without subscribing. Just one click, fam. Also, drop a comment and let me know if you've ever dealt with a Brad in your workplace. Now, back to the disaster. By 2 p.m., I heard him in the break room, laughing with two fresh out of college analysts about phasing out dinosaur systems. I'm 39, not a dinosaur, but in Brad's universe, if you don't have a podcast about your morning routine, you're basically extinct. Then came the all-hands meeting, open concept bullpen style. Everyone crammed together like sardines at a motivational seminar nobody asked for. Brad whipped out this slide deck absolutely loaded with garbage phrases like synergistic compliance realignment and democratized accountability frameworks. I watched 4 interns nod along like he'd just discovered fire. Some team members, particularly those handling legacy operational structures, will undergo performance evaluation to ensure we're aligned with our Lean Forward initiative, he announced. Then his eyes locked on me. "We really value your past contributions, Jessica." Past. Like I was already a footnote in some corporate history book gathering dust in HR's storage closet. I didn't say a word, just smiled. You know that smile, the kind you give when someone's walking straight into a trap you've been setting up for years. The kind that says, "Oh sweetie, you have no idea what's coming." That night, I stayed late. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to watch the system one last time. Wanted to see it running smooth, like a mother checking on her kids before the world tries to take them away. I verified every single one of my credentials across 4 federal databases. All active, all current, all renewals processed, all timestamped, and every single one tied directly to my name and my biometric signature. Then I pulled up my employment contract, the one nobody ever actually reads. Section 9D, in the event of involuntary termination, all company-funded regulatory certifications and federal licensing authorities shall be considered null and void, with formal credential revocation occurring within 72 hours of contract termination. Nobody saw me leave the building that night. But I saw the way Brad had been watching me all week, like a hawk eyeing a mouse, not realizing the mouse has been feeding poison to the whole damn food chain. You ever watch someone mistake a landmine for a stepping stone? You're about to. The first time I heard them laughing at me, I let it slide. It was 3 of the junior analysts, fresh from college, still wet behind the ears and drunk on borrowed confidence. They were huddled around a printout of my old compliance flowchart like it was some ancient artifact from a museum. "This thing uses color codes like it's a kindergarten art project," one of them snorted. Another chimed in. "She literally timestamps everything by hand. Has anyone told her computers exist?" They were clustered near the water cooler like a pack of chihuahuas who think they're pit bulls, sipping their oat milk lattes and dropping buzzwords like AI integration and blockchain synergy, as if those phrases had ever stopped a federal audit from tearing through a company like a tornado through a trailer park. I walked past with my head high, but my blood was absolutely boiling. By Wednesday, I'd been locked out of 5 internal systems, 3 of which I personally designed and built from scratch. No warning, no email, no courtesy heads up. Just a big red, access denied, screen and a message that said, contact your administrator. Plot twist. I was the administrator. Or at least, I used to be. I tried emailing IT. Radio silence. Called HR 3 times, finally got through to a real person who sounded about as interested in helping me as a cat at a dog show. Sorry, Jessica, all employee access requests now route through your direct supervisor. That would be Brad. Brad freaking Morrison. The guy who asked me last week if PDF stood for, pretty decent file. I hung up without another word, just stared at my computer screen glowing back at me like a tombstone. I'd been systematically cut off from every meaningful system in less than a week. No explanation, just streamlining. Brad was clever in that slimy MBA kind of way. Not smart enough to build anything, but just smart enough to know how to tear things apart while hiding behind policy memos and corporate jargon. He'd started slipping little grenades into his weekly reports to upper management. Things like legacy processes under review, and potential staffing redundancies identified, and my personal favorite. Overlapping certification management detected. That last one was adorable, like you could just overlap a federally mandated licensing authority that's literally tied to my fingerprint and social security number. I'd become a ghost in my own office. Technically employed, but strategically erased. So I did what any smart woman would do. I scheduled an appointment at a notary office, quiet little spot above a nail salon on Henderson Street. No drama, just me, a stiff chair, and a form titled Voluntary Relinquishment of Federal Licensing Authority. I didn't sign it yet, just had it notarized as an option. A loaded gun tucked in my back pocket, just in case things got ugly. Afterwards, I grabbed myself a caramel macchiato and walked back into that office wearing the deadest smile you've ever seen. Brad passed me in the hallway and had the audacity to say, "Hope you're settling into the new workflow, Jess." I nodded sweetly. "Oh yeah, just tying up some loose ends." He grinned that corporate snake grin, the kind you see on guys selling pyramid schemes at hotel conference rooms. What he didn't know was that every loose end I tied came with a fuse attached. And honey, I had the matches. It all went down on a Monday. Because of course it did. Mondays are when the universe decides to test your faith in humanity. We were all summoned to Brad's weekly Momentum Sync, which was basically a TED Talk for sociopaths. He stood at the front of the open-floor bullpen in his tight-fitted navy blazer, doing that weird palms-out gesture like he was calming down a bunch of wild horses. "Let's kick this off with some real talk," he said. And you know when someone starts with real talk, you're about to get gutted in public. We've been doing a lot of reflecting these past few weeks. He paced back and forth like a shark circling blood in the water. And while we value tradition, we can't let nostalgia hold us back. Then he stopped. Right behind my chair. I didn't turn around. And he said it, loud and clear for everyone to hear. Certain legacy positions no longer align with our forward trajectory. People started shifting uncomfortably. Some stared at the floor. One kid tried to smile like this was normal, like we were just watching someone lose a parking spot and not their entire livelihood. Then came the kill shot. Effective immediately. Brad announced. Jessica Martinez's role has been phased out. No meeting. No warning. No private conversation. Just a sentence dropped like a bomb in front of 30 people. I stood up. Not because I was rattled, but because my legs felt way too steady for how badly I wanted to drop kick him through the nearest window. 2 HR reps. Both young, both avoiding eye contact like I had the plague, walked up holding a glossy folder like they were serving me a subpoena at my own funeral. I took it. Opened it. Flipped straight to the termination page. No severance package, just legal mumbo-jumbo and a dotted line waiting for my signature. I pulled a pen from my own purse, signed it in one clean stroke, then looked up and said, "I'll need a printed copy for my records." Brad blinked. "It's all digital now," he said, like I'd asked him to carve it in stone. "Printed," I repeated. "Wasn't asking." The HR lady hesitated, then scurried off like a scared mouse. For minutes later, I walked out of that building with a paper copy, a stamped receipt, and the calm of a woman who knew exactly what bombs she'd just armed. You see, when I signed that termination form, Section 9D of my contract triggered a silent alarm across 3 federal databases. An invisible tripwire. Every active certification the company paid for. My certifications, immediately queued for automatic revocation. Not suspended. Not expired. Deleted. At 6:47 that evening, my phone buzzed with a confirmation email. Your authority over license numbers CN 4429, FD 8831, and MDR 2206 has been formally relinquished. Entities relying on these credentials will be flagged as non-compliant within 48 hours unless reauthorized by a certified replacement. I didn't forward it. Didn't screenshot it. Didn't even reply. I just sat in my apartment, sipped some cheap red wine, watched reruns of Friends, and let the digital news tighten around Brad's precious, forward trajectory. And let me tell you, I slept like an absolute baby that night. Wednesday morning started with chaos, and a very expensive shipment of absolutely nothing. At 8:52 a.m., the procurement team tried to confirm delivery of sterile filtration equipment for one of our pharmaceutical clients. The kind of stuff you don't even breathe near without 6 signatures and a hazmat certification. The vendor's response came back cold. Cannot fulfill order. Receiving entity flagged as inactive. License CN 4429 revoked. Contact certifying officer for reinstatement. Guess who that certifying officer was? 10 minutes later, the system started having a full-blown meltdown. Login errors. Failed data syncs. A scheduled upload to the FDA's compliance portal got rejected with a brutal message. Invalid license holder on record. That same hour, the internal licensing dashboard, once clean and green like a freshly watered lawn, started lighting up like a Christmas tree in hell. Red alerts everywhere. Expired tags. Credentials marked orphaned. It was beautiful. Brad, ever the confident genius, strolled into the operations wing with his overpriced coffee and said, "We'll just update the contact info real quick." One of the compliance analysts, sweet girl named Amy who looked about 19, tried to explain. "Sir, contact updates require federal reauthorization." Jessica was the primary certifying officer. Legally. Brad waved his hand like he was swatting a fly. "So just do it anyway." She was the only credentialed officer with reauthorization privileges across all active compliance verticals, Amy continued, her voice shaking. "No one else is registered with the Federal Licensing Board. And the re-registration process, it takes like 6 to 8 weeks minimum." Silence. The kind of silence you hear right before a car crash. Like watching the Titanic realize the iceberg isn't moving. Brad rubbed his temples and muttered, "Why the hell didn't anyone tell me this sooner?" Amy, bless her heart, replied softly. "Jessica told people. Multiple times." Meanwhile, I was at home in my favorite sweatpants, eating off-brand Fruit Loops and reading the entire email thread a former coworker had secretly blind copied me into. Someone even screenshot Brad's Slack message to the legal team. Does anyone know how to override an expired license flag in the system thingy? Thingy. He called it a thingy. That dashboard was my baby for 7 years. I designed it to lock down tighter than Fort Knox if certain compliance triggers fired. It wasn't just bureaucratic red tape, it was surgical precision. If someone without proper credentials tried accessing a certification file, it blacklisted their IP address and auto-reported the breach to internal audit logs. Which they discovered that afternoon, because Brad had tried to brute force his way into the system like a toddler trying to hack the Pentagon. By lunchtime, the executive team was losing their minds. Emails flying back and forth. Can we contact Jessica? Does her NDA prevent rehiring? Who the hell signed off on this termination? Nobody had answers, because the only person who could have answered was too busy deciding between Thai food or pizza for lunch. Spoiler alert. I ordered both. That evening, I casually opened LinkedIn and checked my old company's page. Still proudly advertising, federally certified across all operations, like some kind of badge of honor. I almost felt bad. Almost. Instead, I smiled, because I knew by tomorrow morning that little lie was gonna cost them way more than just their reputation. Friday morning arrived with the kind of dread you feel when you hear sirens outside your house at 3 a.m. Except nobody could hear these sirens, just the soft ping of a calendar reminder and the sound of Brad's overpriced latte hitting the floor. FDA randomized site inspection, 9:30 a.m. It was legit. Random, sure, but random within a window that Jessica had been preparing for annually, color-coded spreadsheets, cross-referenced against vendor contracts, renewal cycles, and yeah, even the phases of the damn moon if that's what it took. The auditors didn't mess around. They walked in with clipboards, badges, and the cold authority of IRS agents wearing Kevlar vests. By 9:18 a.m., the front desk called compliance in a panic. 3 FDA inspectors are here. They're asking for the primary license holder. Silence. Long. Thick, suffocating silence. Because there wasn't one. Brad, now visibly sweating through his tailored shirt, sprinted to the legal department and barked. Can we get Jessica's credentials reinstated like right now? Some poor paralegal Googled emergency license reinstatement like it was a WikiHow article for changing a tire. Meanwhile, Brad tried logging into the Federal Licensing Board's portal using Jessica's old credentials. Access denied. He requested a password reset. User not found. He called the regulatory board's helpline, got transferred 4 times, and finally reached someone who calmly told him. Jessica Martinez voluntarily relinquished her licensing authority per Contract Clause 9D. Her credentials have been permanently removed from the Federal Registry. Reinstatement requires full recertification. Average processing time is 8 to 12 weeks. Brad stared at the phone like it had just told him his dog died. He spun around to HR. What clause did she use to revoke everything? They flipped through the termination paperwork looking absolutely clueless. We just processed standard exit procedures. We didn't know anything about licensing clauses. Someone from audit spoke up. Wait, didn't Jessica have a custom clause written into her original employment contract? That's when the entire room collectively remembered. Jessica Martinez wasn't just some old compliance lady taking up space. She was the backbone. The foundation. The whole damn load-bearing wall. And they'd ripped her out like a loose tooth, not realizing she was connected to the spine. Across town, my phone buzzed. It was my old work friend Monica from documentation. A genuinely good person who used to bake brownies during audit season and leave encouraging sticky notes on my desk back when the world made sense. Jess. Her voice cracked. Did you do this? I stirred my coffee, looked out the window at absolutely nothing, and smiled. Nope, I said calmly. You did. Click. I didn't slam the phone down. Didn't yell. That would have given them too much credit. Because this wasn't revenge. This was simple math. 1 + 1 = you fired the wrong person. The FDA auditors were now sitting in the lobby like stone statues. The company legally couldn't allow them into secured areas without a licensed compliance officer present, which meant the inspection couldn't proceed, which meant every single vendor and client depending on certified compliance status would be in breach of contract within 6 hours. And me? I was getting my nails done. Deep burgundy gel finish with a matte top coat. Not because I needed to, but because power doesn't need to raise its voice. It just walks away, and watches everything crumble from a distance. Monday morning, 8:14 a.m. The office smelled like stale coffee, anxiety sweat, and the quiet shame of a company realizing it just stepped on its own oxygen supply. That's when he walked in. Richard Montgomery, CEO. Tan so deep it looked like he'd been slow-roasted on a yacht somewhere off the coast of Greece. Silk shirt still wrinkled from whatever five-star resort he'd just floated back from. The man reeked of wealth, SPF 50, and complete ignorance. He strolled through the lobby like a king returning from war, waving at assistants, throwing finger guns at junior execs. "Morning, folks. Hope y'all didn't burn the place down while I was gone." Nobody laughed. By the time he hit the executive floor, he had 9 unread emails marked urgent and a voicemail from the legal team that ended with the words, "Catastrophic compliance failure." At 8:47 a.m., he burst into the operations room expecting maybe some minor turbulence. Instead, he walked straight into a 5-alarm dumpster fire. Operations frozen. Vendor contracts suspended. Inspections failed. Certifications invalid. Clients furious. Revenue dashboard flatlining like a patient in cardiac arrest. He looked around the room full of red-eyed managers and asked slowly, "Who is handling this?" Every single head turned toward Brad, who now looked less like a visionary disruptor and more like a middle schooler who just accidentally set the gym on fire with a science experiment. Richard pulled up Jessica's termination paperwork on the big wall-mounted screen. Read it in complete silence. Scrolled down. Kept scrolling. Finally, he said it quietly at first, like he couldn't believe the words coming out of his own mouth. "You fired the license holder." Brad opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again like a fish gasping for air. Richard's voice didn't rise. It dropped. Ice cold. "You fired the one person with sole federal licensing authority across every single department in this company." Brad stammered. "Her responsibilities were deemed redundant." Richard laughed. But not like a joke laugh. More like a, "I just found out my kids sold the house for crypto" laugh. He pointed at the screen. "Her name is on every regulatory document. Every active license. Every renewal pathway. Every legal compliance chain this company needs to exist." He flipped open a folder legal had rushed in with. "Here's our top 7 suspended vendors. All contracts frozen due to expired certifications. And here." He tossed a paper onto the conference table like a blackjack dealer revealing the losing hand. Jessica Martinez listed on every single one. Richard spun back toward the room. "And you let some kid who writes in corporate word salad fire her?" Brad tried one last desperate play. "I thought we could just reassign the credentials. It said we could update contact info." "It's a federal license, not a damn Spotify playlist." Richard roared. Silence fell like a hammer. Richard grabbed his phone. Looked up Jessica's contact info. Nothing. HR spoke up nervously. "We tried reaching her, sir. She's, unresponsive." Richard sighed. Sat down. Rubbed his temples like the sunburn had crawled inside his skull. "Then get her back." Brad coughed. "She might not want to come back." Richard looked at him like he was a bug crawling across a $100 shoe. "Oh, she'll come back," he said coldly. "We'll pay whatever it takes. Name a conference room after her if we have to." But deep down, even he knew. The woman they tossed out like expired yogurt now held the keys to their entire kingdom. And she wasn't standing at the gate anymore. She'd built her own castle. And inside every blueprint they were scrambling to recover, her name was still stamped in permanent ink. By noon, my inbox had 8 messages flagged critical from R. Montgomery at venturecorpusa.com. Subject line on the last one: "Urgent return requested, CEO directive." I didn't open it right away. I finished my brunch first. Avocado toast. Mimosa. The smug silence of a woman whose enemies were now panicking under fluorescent lights while she sat in natural sunlight. Richard had legal draft an offer within hours. Consulting position. 6-month contract. Ridiculous salary. Performance bonuses. And of course, a full NDA. No social media. No interviews. Total silence. The offer came wrapped in corporate desperation disguised as opportunity. Jessica, we recognize the invaluable nature of your contributions. Please consider rejoining our team to restore operational stability. We're prepared to be flexible. Let's rebuild together. Richard, I read it twice. No apology. No accountability. Just thinly veiled panic dressed up in HR language. I typed my reply. Richard. I appreciate the offer. Truly. Unfortunately. I don't return to burning buildings. Especially ones where I was the one thrown into the flames for streamlining. Attached you'll find my signed termination form, confirmation of license revocation from the National Registry, and a screenshot of your compliance dashboard taken 96 hours post-termination. You'll notice my name, still listed, grayed out, irreplaceable. Wishing you compliance and clarity. Jessica Martinez. I hit send. Didn't wait for a response. 3 weeks later, there I was on LinkedIn. New position. Director of Regulatory Strategy at BioNova Systems. Short post. No hashtags. Just. Grateful to join a team where experience isn't called a liability. Justice didn't scream. It just smiled, and moved on. So hey, if you made it this far and loved watching karma work its magic, smash that subscribe button and hit the like. Let's keep serving cold corporate revenge together. You know you want to.